Hello, welcome to the Elevate Your Wellbeing podcast with myself, Rachael Wagstaffe. This is the last episode of the year. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you're completely new to the podcast, whether you've been listening to this for just over a year now, as I launched this podcast in December 2022. So it means a lot to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's dive in. The 90-day review is one of my favorite practices. This is why I love to share this on the podcast. This is why I share this in the free Facebook group that I run, because it's a really beautiful way to reflect on what you've actually done. A book that I absolutely adore is called The Gap and the Gain, because so often we feel we're in the gap. We notice how far we've got to keep going. Then are we there yet, or there's still so far to go, because we usually set ourselves these huge goals. Or sometimes we just feel like we haven't done anything. And then when we reflect and review, we realize all the gains that we've had in that space of time. And it really helps you to break up your goals as well. And the previous 90-day plan that I did, I decided to focus on 3 particular areas. So it means you can really hone in and get focused. And even reviewing that for me, it's been really incredible just seeing how easy that was to set that up, because I really broke it down into like these little bite-sized pieces. So I'm just going to do a little 90-day review just to share with you how this last 90 days have been for me, and then I'm going to dive into a little reflection for the whole year. So you could do these questions for the last 90 days if you wish to, or you can have a little review of the whole year. So do have your journal handy, especially have your the 90-day plan that you had for October, November, and December handy, so you can use that and reflect, like, what was your intention for those 90 days that have just passed. So my 3 areas I picked. So I look at the wheel of wellness. This is something that I go over with my clients, and I pick, there's 12 areas on there, and I just pick 3 areas, and then within those 3 areas I pick one focus. So my 3 areas that I focused on for the last 90 days was my business, was my health and well-being, and my relationship. And then I pulled that back. It's like, right, what do I want to feel? Who do I want to be? And what do I want to create? So I want to just feel really good in my body. I want to create a lot of focus. I want to feel organized, and I want to feel that connection again. And that one felt quite easy for a relationship, though it was interesting to create the habit, because obviously it's not just myself, but it was nudging obviously my partner as well. So within that was recreating our connection. So we were having like these little coffee dates and then date nights, and so we could look ahead and go, actually, this is what we've got on, so we can realize how much space we have for each other and how much space we need support with. And that has been really, really nice, and that's already created a really much deeper connection in the last 90 days, which we're going to keep continuing. So it could be, sometimes things seem really simple, but you still got to really work at it. So for me, that's probably been the hardest one, because it included obviously my partner. So it's getting him on board as well with, oh yeah, this is what we're doing, and having those little nudges to do that. With my health and well-being, I have been a weightlifter for maybe since 2017, 2018, and it's still been really sporadic. I've been in it, and then I got out of it. And then I can remember joining the gym in early 2020, because I was like, right, I can have more of a selection. Obviously, then that didn't last very long because of all the lockdown stuff, which really, again, got me off of my focus, that consistency with it. I was like, right, what worked for me when I was starting to sing yoga many years ago? And it was keep it really simple, keep it really short. I literally did like 10-minute practices. So something my mentor said that he does is he picks 4 movements and does 4 sets for each movement. And for me right now, that takes maybe 10-15 minutes. So I already had 12 moves that I was like focusing on when I'm in the gym. So I broke them down. I was like, okay, how can I make this really even? So on a Monday and a Friday, the movements are actually like quite similar or opposite. So I've got like a upright row on a Friday. So on the Monday, I make sure I do like the bent over row, or if I'm doing something where I'm standing, I then do something that's the same movement but slightly opposite. So I do an incline movement. So I get like, I'm not doing all the same type of movements in one day. So I break it up. And that's been really interesting. And because I already have that foundation in my body, that's actually felt really good to do. And then I've just slot that in. I've written out my plan somewhere I can easily see it in my office. I walk the dogs and then I come in and do that on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that's slotted in quite easily, although it took me probably a month for that to really start to settle. And then from there, that's taken off. And then for me in my business, I thought, right, well, how do I feel when I show up? When I'm organized versus how do I feel when I show up and I have no idea what I'm doing, or I just feel like there's so much to do. I start a week again and I'm like, okay, right, I've got to get back on the wagon. So for me, it's been sorting out batching. So I really wanted to focus on the content I'm putting out there, breaking that down into the podcast, obviously what I'm doing at the moment, my blog, and the newsletters. So I can stay in touch with everyone in all those different places. I will be doing my Facebook Live still, but I break that down into something slightly different because obviously I can't batch them, but I do sit down and have a little typical of what I'm going to be showing up with. And I've really, really focused on batching them. I was already doing that for the podcast. I'll sit down usually to kind of record 4 or 5 episodes. What was really interesting, I recently went to see one of my mentors this year live, and she was saying that she's like the queen of batching. She will literally go, right, I'm going to write all this stuff out, and then it's done. She does the same with her podcast. She's at that place now where she can go and rent out a podcast studio, and she will literally spend 1 or 2 days completely immersed in doing that. So she usually does at least 12 episodes in a day, which is really, really interesting to really focus on going into that batching. So that's what I really wanted to get on top of. And yeah, that feels really good. That's where I've got to. So have a little reflect over the last 90 days. What were the goals that you set yourself? Where are you in relation to getting them there, or are they now created? Or is there something that you need to do to refocus or recalibrate, or maybe even let them go? So wherever you are at with the goals you set for yourself for the last 90 days, don't allow yourself to get caught up in that gap. Really look at the gains you have made, even if it's just noticing maybe it's not a priority for you right now. So we're going to go into reviewing the last year, the whole of 2023. So if you have been doing your 90-day plans and reviews, this should be a lot easier because you've already broken it down. So you can have a little look back through. So from 1 to 10, how do you feel overall about this past year? 1 to 10, how do you feel overall about this past year? And you might decide to pause the podcast just to give yourself a little bit more of extra time and then come back in when you're ready for the next prompt. So with those 90-day reviews, your 90-day goals, your year in general, overall, what advice would you give yourself now if you were talking to yourself at the beginning of 2023? Knowing everything you know now, what advice would you give yourself if you were chatting with who you were at the beginning of 2023? Again, feel free to have a little pause if you want to take a little bit more time to reflect on this. What were the 3 biggest lessons you've learned this past year? What were the 3 biggest lessons you've learned this past year? And what is one way that you could incorporate these lessons into your life moving forward into 2024? What is one way that you can incorporate these lessons into your life moving forward into 2024? Again, have a little pause if you need to. Take your time reflecting on these. Using your reviews, those 90-day reviews, your 90-day goal plans, Review the past year and really assess what was your priority. What were you prioritizing throughout 2023? Was it being able to feel a certain way? Was it really honed in on your well-being, as in setting up a particular activity like mine for the last 90 days? Was that weightlifting? Was it to have a little more of a work-life balance? Was it to actually accelerate in your career, which then could be leading to an improvement in your well-being if you're feeling more financially free or you've allowed yourself to create more time freedom? So what were your priorities in 2023? And are you happy with how you spent your time throughout 2023? Are you happy with how you spent your time throughout 2023? This is where reviewing is really powerful, because if you're not, if you feel like you weren't focused or you spent more time on one area when you wish you could have spent it on another, what steps can you take to adjust that for 2024? What steps can you take to adjust that for 2024? How are you different between this year and last year? So thinking back to the end of 2022, who were you then compared to who you are now? Who were you at the end of 2022 compared to who you are right now listening to this in 2023? How have you elevated into your life? How much have you grown? Are you more focused? Are you more energized? Like, I've done a whole year of reviewing and I never thought I would be capable of doing that. Who or what are you especially grateful for this year? Who or what are you especially grateful for this year? So this might be one thing or one person. You might be making a massive list of these. Who or what are you most grateful for this year? And then your last one, name 3 things you can improve on for the next year. Name 3 things you can improve on for the next year. And what actions can you take to work towards these improvements? So what 3 things can you improve on for the next year? And what actions can you take to work towards these improvements as you move into 2024? So we're going to be going into setting goals and a 90-day plan on next week's episode. We're going to split that up. So really take your time focusing on reviewing the last 90 days and then the whole year. And really think about that last question. What can you improve on for next year? We're always improving. We're always elevating. We're always leveling up. We're always stretching for the next thing. And just have a little think about what actions you could take to create that improvement. Who do you want to be when you're doing this time next year? We're going to dive into that on the podcast. Sweet. So happy New Year.